My name is Carly Fisher, and I want to talk to you about the data set that I have that involves NBA statistics and analytics about players throughout the years. And the question I want to ask to you, my audience, is what it takes to build a championship team and some things that you need to know when it comes to that process. First off, you want to become familiar with terms that involve basketball and the jargon of it. Often you have 5 set positions on a team, especially in the NBA. You have your center, who is your middle guy, usually your biggest man on the court, and he will very often not really dribble it, but he participates in defense and blocking and getting rebounds. Then you have your power forward, which will stand for PF in this data set. And these are the guys who usually throw the ball in, they can dribble, but they're also the big man and they will help out the center and the guards occasionally. Your PG is your point guard, usually your smallest guy on the floor, but he also touches the ball the most. He's the one who dribbles it up and down and takes care of it. Your SF, that's your small forward. He's usually playing on the left wing and he can dribble it, pass it. He's more of a adaptability player and he doesn't have too set of a position, but he does what he needs to do, and it varies from team to team. SG is your shooting guard, and that is your player who has the most shots, who gets the most shots, and who usually makes the most shots. He's usually one of the higher scorers, and he is a good player to have, especially on championship teams. The data set that I have, it ranges from 1977 to 2020 for the NBA. So there's a lot of data there, and there's a lot you can do with it. And one thing I wanted to point out was the difference between the big guys and the little guys, meaning your centers and power forwards. Like in this bar chart I have right here, each one is sectioned into the position's average. So for your center, you have your average defensive rebounds, percentage-wise, not their actual. They don't get 19 rebounds per game, but it's their average percentage in comparison to the rest of their teams. So for the center, they would have, on average, just about 20% of their team's defensive rebounds. For the power forward, that's 18. For the PG, 8. And you see the guards and smaller ones dramatically drop off. The same goes for offensive rebounds and total rebounds. Your center's power forwards really carry right there. And so you would automatically want to think, hey, these are what I need for a good championship team. I want people who can rebound and get me extra points and do the dirty work like this. But then you have to go and look at these other stats that involve assists, blocks, and steals, and the percentages that go with each position. Here, with your center and power forward, you have a dramatic decrease in what they contribute and how they perform. Yet for your other small guards, your PG, SF, and shooting guard, their numbers go up, and they have a much higher percentage of when it comes to actual scores or assists and contributing. So that's the big takeaway. You want to look at the difference between the center and power forward and the PG, SF, and SG. But you also want to realize that you can't have one without the other. And when it comes to building good teams, you have to take both into account and not just focus on one over the other. So I want to talk about some of the most common winning champions of NBA history. Of course, you have currently, and for the last few years, LeBron James. That is his logo right there. It's a crown. Who has won multiple championships. He's like an all-star. He's really good. Even if you don't know basketball, you know who he is. And then you have the Chicago Bulls. And they, of course, they had Michael Jordan. Who doesn't know Michael Jordan? But then they also went on a winning streak during the 90s. They won 3 back-to-back championships 2 different times. Very impressive. Very much a championship team and a lot to learn from them. Golden State Warriors, they had their moment in 2017 and 18 when they won back-to-back championships, actually defeating LeBron a couple times. And you might know names like Steph Curry and Steve Kerr, their coach. Very big names, very successful. And there's a lot to be gathered from them. And so I want to pose the question, is it about these star players that they have, that they succeeded? Or is it more about having a well-rounded team that can do a little bit of everything and everyone contributes? And there are many stats we could work with and analyze, but for this, we will zero in on 2-point percentages and 3-point percentages, since these are the stats that most people are concerned with and focused on, especially when it comes to scoring. First, this is a chart for LeBron James throughout the years. It's even little crown shapes to represent his logo. And in the orange there, you have his 2-point percentage. And then in the blue, his 3-point percentage. What's highlighted is the years that he won championships with his teams. The first two with Miami Heat. The second one with Cleveland Cavaliers. Sorry, that took me a second. And then 2020 with Los Angeles Lakers. But what I want you to notice is that his stats, of course, when he's first starting out, it's a little lower. He's getting in the swing of things. But then through this later half of his career, there's no, single jumping point where he's just above everyone and everything, especially compared to his past performances. These championship years wouldn't even really stand out if I hadn't outlined them with these markers. And so I want to emphasize the fact that he did good and he's a really good player, but his championship years did not come from him being some super amazing athlete who just dominated everyone by himself. Next, we have the Chicago Bulls, specifically their 1998 championship season, which was their final season that they won, and was a beautiful thing. And what I want to point out, first of all, is that the color is according to 2% percentage for how many shots they usually make. And then the size refers to their 3-point percentage. And so, of course, you have Steve Kerr, who kind of led, and then all these other names. But, of course, you're looking for Michael Jordan, who you would think would be, big and, bold and, up at the top. But, in fact, he's down on the bottom, kind of towards the smaller area. And he wasn't the greatest stat-wise for them. And I think it's really important to point out that, yes, Michael Jordan was a great player, and Chicago did succeed a lot because of him, but they also built a very great team around him. And they didn't just focus on a single player, and instead branched out and focused on other positions as well. Next, we have the Golden State Warriors. And what I wanted to do with this graph was demonstrate how evenly they are all sized, because their size is based on their 2-point percentage. And scoring, of course, is very important when it comes to winning championships. And for the Golden State Warriors in 2018, everyone contributed a lot when it came to their 2-point percentages, and they were all very good at what they did. Color, of course, is 3-point percentages, so you have, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, who all were up more there when it came to that. But even then, you don't have one person who's darker than the rest, or one lighter or anything. It's all evenly spread out. There's a shift, and everyone had their role to fill. So in conclusion, I just want to reiterate to you guys that the most important thing when it comes to building a championship team is the fact that you have to put in the necessary work and effort to not just focus on a single star player, but instead work on building your team for all around, from each position, from your big center man guy to your small PG person. Thank you for listening.